Hello, and welcome to AWitchAlone's podcast, the podcast for witches, about witches, by witches. I'm your host, Danielle. All great things have beginnings, and seeing as this episode is entitled Introduction, you will get to learn all about the witch behind the voice, hopefully without boring you. A question I'm frequently asked is how I got started on this path. As someone with no practicing family members, it was honestly kind of a fluke. Before my first Wicca book, before ever reading Harry Potter, I felt incredibly at peace in nature. I could never get enough of being outside, and I still can't. I have always talked to the trees, to the flowers, to the wind as it blew by. Looking back, I don't ever remember feeling strange or unusual for doing so. I was baptized Christian in my later years, somewhere between 10 and 13. When my mother had found a church she truly felt at home in. As churches and congregations go, they were definitely one of the better ones. I never felt judged when listening to the minister or talking to others that attended, but it still didn't fill me with that sense of soul everyone else seemed to experience. If I'm honest, I just thought that would be my life. I would go to church with my parents and sit in the pew, listening and questioning and not really caring what was going on. I felt fake and empty when I went there, no matter how nice people were. Fast forward to 2005 and the summer before grade 9, where I went and stayed with my aunt for the weekend. We had decided to go walk along the lakefront to engage in the street festival, and I found a used bookstore. I've always loved books, and secondhand old books are the best kind for me. They smell so good. I walked the shelves, running my hands along the spines until a yellow spine caught my eye with the word witchcraft standing out in blue writing. My heart started to race. This was it. This was like my letter to Hogwarts. Someone had left this book here for me to find, and I was going to become a witch. Which was true. Just not in the way I was hoping for. I was looking forward to going to a far-off school, suddenly developing a British accent, and getting to turn people into wart goblets. But alas, this was not the case. What I did find was a spiritual pathway that gave me that soul-fulfilling feeling that I was missing. Anyone that has grown up in a family bound by organized religion knows that if they came across a book that said, The Idiot's Guide to Wicca and Witchcraft, no matter how much they wanted it, they would have to save their tour money and buy it in secret. I definitely didn't have any money, and apparently no worries, because I walked up to my aunt and asked her, or possibly begged her, to buy me the book. And she did. Whether or not this is true, I attribute her willingness to buy the book to her undying love for the TV show Charmed, which I had never seen or heard of because I didn't get that channel. I can't remember if I read it in secret from my parents, but I devoured the information in that book, and it is still, to this day, one of the starter books I recommend to people. The idea of the idiot's guide doesn't sit well with some in general, but when it came to the subject, I was an idiot. Uneducated in anything to do with witchcraft or the religion of Wicca. And when you're just starting out, you are too. This book, yes, it talks to you like you're an idiot, but it made everything way easier for me to understand in such simple speak, especially at 14 when everything in your life is confusing. That was 13 and a half years ago, and since then I have become loud and proud in my witchcraft. I have scared the crap out of my parents by them thinking I was in a cult, to now reading my mom's tarot cards when she wants any guidance. I have had some backlash from people I immediately cut out of my life. I have survived coming out of the broom closet, and even now have no fear about reading tarot for family, friends, coworkers, and even people I don't personally know. It has been a long 13 years of finding my specific path, my deities, accumulating my tools, and finally just this year, acquiring the altar of my dreams. I'm telling you all of this because I want you to know where I came from, where I started from. So many witches think they aren't good enough for the craft because they're in the closet. They can't practice, they don't have a fancy cauldron, but you are, I assure you. I'm making this podcast because there is so much information out there on Wicca and witchcraft, so many social media pages and books with a plethora of information, and it can be really overwhelming. I wanted to make something easy, something that would give the information you wanted or needed without having to read an entire book or sift through websites to get the answer. Something you could suggest to someone in your life to help them learn and understand about your craft in an easy way. I want to be able to help witches feel secure in their pathway, especially if you're starting out with no elder or no one who practices in your family like I did. Maybe you connect with a story or a certain episode and you feel you're not so alone. Maybe you come across one of my Instagram or Twitter posts and you feel a kindred spirit in my shared experience. These are my hopes, to create a community, to normalize the ever-growing pathway that is witchcraft, to diminish the negative stereotypes. I hope you'll join me on this new adventure of podcasting and find it useful in learning or helping others learn. That brings us to the end of this incredibly short episode. I'm hoping that this will be a bi-weekly podcast, so make sure to subscribe and turn your notifications on. Next week, we will be discussing Wicca versus witchcraft versus other pagan paths. This episode was brought to you by the tarot card, the King of Pentacles, or the Father of Pentacles in my specific tarot deck, the Wild Unknown, which I think is very fitting. Pentacles being your home, health, and career suit. The Father of Pentacles is an entrepreneurial and diligent worker, which would make sense for my first podcast. And by my friends over at the Rough Cut Podcast. If you like movies, wit, and sarcasm, you definitely need to check them out. And without them, I wouldn't know what the heck I'm even doing. If you're on Instagram or Twitter, swing by my pages under the same handle, AWitchAlone. And if you follow, make sure you say hi. I love meeting new followers. Until next episode, blessed be.